This meeting is being recorded.
All right, I'd like to call the Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 virtual planning board meeting to order, please. Karen, could you call the roll?
Bob Doherty,
Here.
Jim Callahan,
Here.
Kevin Donovan,
Here.
David Edmonds,
Here.
Carolyn Turner,
Here.
Mike Ventresca,
Here.
Chair Claudia Bogan.
Here. All right, first item on the agenda under public hearing, special permit site plan review, application to authorize light manufacturing use of approximately 33,414 square feet within a new two-story building containing approximately 133,738 square feet of net floor area at 216 New Boston Street.
Claudia, you have a hand up by Miss Reynolds.
I have a hand up.
Oh, maybe it's just my
That
computer.
wasn't intentional. Sorry.
No worries. All right. And Tina, what have we today on this?
Sure. So members will recall that the board started the public hearing on this matter quite a few months ago. I want to say it was maybe July that we started it. And after a pretty thorough presentation, the board has been continuing the public hearing to allow a couple of peer reviews to take place. You might recall that the city council is reviewing part of this project on the abutting lot at 225 Merrimack, and the project you're looking at 215 New Boston was all subject to peer reviews of the utilities, of traffic, and drainage. It took quite a while, months actually, to have the city hire the peer reviewers, have the peer reviews conducted, and then discussed between the applicant, the petitioner, the city representatives of the various departments, and the consultants that had been hired to do the reviews. Those have all been completed, and we sit here this evening with, I think, comments from all the city departments now in place. They are generally positive. All of them were supportive. The comments from the engineering department recommended that approval be given subject to a couple of conditions, which I would eventually, when the time is right, recommend that they actually be attached as conditions of approval of the planning board. So we're here tonight, hopefully, to conclude the public hearing and then have a discussion, however lengthy is needed, and then a vote, hopefully, on the two petitions, which are specifically a special permit to allow 33,514 square feet of light manufacturing space at the new building at 216 New Boston Street, and to approve the site plan that has been submitted to you for review. I also know that Attorney Ann Reynolds is here representing Attorney Joe Tarby, who is actually attending another meeting of the Woburn City Council this evening. So I don't know, Attorney Reynolds, if you have anything you wanted to say before turning it back to the chair.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll be brief. But as Tina mentioned, I am here on behalf of, or in place of Joe Tarby, who is at the City Council hearing this evening, and I'm here with members of the project team in the event there are any questions. As was stated, we are seeking a special permit pursuant to section 5.1 30B, section 5.1 41A, section 5.1 53, and section 8.3.1 in site plan review pursuant to section 12.2.4 of the zoning ordinance to allow a two-story building containing approximately 133,738 square feet of net floor area with the following uses: light manufacturing, which is approximately 33,514 square feet, it was just stated, and this is the special permit that is before you. And then there is 39,000 approximately office space, which is a city council special permit, and lab use, which is 58,845 square feet, and that is also before the city council. accessory high hazard use before the city council and the parking of 92 vehicles on the adjacent lot at 225 Merrimack Street, and that is before the city council as well. And then, as Tina mentioned, the petitioner is seeking special permits from the city council to section 5.130B, section 5.141A, and site plan review pursuant to section 12.2.4 to allow a 4-story building containing approximately 174,812 square feet of net floor area with office use, lab use, and in addition, the petitioner is proposing to construct a parking garage to accommodate approximately 451 parking spaces. Both properties, as you know, are located in the IP zoning district, which requires a special permit from the planning board for light manufacturing over 15,000 square feet. And special permits from the city council for office in excess of 15,000 square feet, lab use in excess of 25,000 square feet in new construction, and parking on a lot within 500 feet from the proposed use. As you know, the peer reviews were ordered in June of this year, have all been completed, and the city council will be holding its public hearing this evening in person at City Hall, where it's expected it will approve both petitions for 216 New Boston Street and 225 Merrimack Street. On November 9th, 2022, we met with the following department heads: Tom Quinn, building commissioner, with Tina Cassidy, and Lenny Burnham, who is the assistant DPW superintendent, and fire safety officer Joseph Foley, to review the project at 216 New Boston Street and to discuss their comments. Comment letters have been received or submitted, and as Tina referenced, there are no major issues outstanding. I'm going to introduce briefly Nick Delacava of Allen and Major, just to give you an update on the site plan. And then if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer anything.
All right.
Thank you, Ann. Again, this is Nick Delacava with Allen and Major Associates. I can bring up the site plan. We have, let me bring it up. Can you make me a?
I just did.
Okay, thanks. So this is the site plan. It really hasn't changed. Full screen. Hasn't changed since our last submission on September 9th. Again, we have lot 1, building 1 to the left. We have an entrance off of New Boston Street and an entrance off of Merrimack Street for vehicles and trucks to enter. Trucks will enter off of Merrimack, come in, make a movement back into building 2.
Because I have to download Zoom and I am not.
The trucks will come in off of New Boston Street, down the main driveway entrance, make the turning movement back into building 1. And passenger vehicles will access the site off the 2 curb cuts in New Boston, wrapping around, full access around each of the buildings, and a parking garage associated with building 2. So again, there really hasn't been any change since basically we originally submitted this. And I think Ann and Tina did a great job recapping everything that we've been working on behind the scenes up until now. So what I'd like to do is just really open it up for any questions or comments that you have while we have the project team here.
All right. First, before I ask the board to ask you questions or make comments if they have them, this is a public hearing. So I would like to open the public hearing and ask if there is anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this project. Tina will explain how you would let us know that you want to speak.
So if you would like to speak, take your cursor, and if you hovered over the bottom of your screen, you should see an option that says, I'm sorry, that says reactions. And if you click on that, you will see a raised hand function. If you would click on that, it will raise your hand virtually, and we'll be able to tell that you want to address the board. So reactions and then raise hand. I'm now reviewing the audience, Madam Chairman, and I don't see anybody with their hand raised.
All right, so why don't I throw it open to the board members to ask any questions or to make any comments that they have, and then we can decide what to do with the public hearing after that. So if there's anybody, any board members that have questions or comments, if you could give me a verbal cue, since I can't see all of you right this second, I'd appreciate it. All right, well, I am not hearing any questions at the moment, but I would like to suggest that before we ask the planning board director to give us her thoughts and recommendations, that somebody make a motion with regard to the public hearing, in particular to close the public hearing.
So moved.
All right, there is a motion to close the public hearing by Dave Edmonds. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Carolyn Turner. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
I believe Bob Doherty has to abstain.
I do.
Jim Callahan? Jim?
Aye.
Kevin Donovan?
Aye.
Dave Edmonds?
Aye.
Carolyn Turner?
Aye.
Mike Ventresca?
I have to abstain as
Abstain.
well.
Right. And Chair Claudia Bogan?
Aye. So that would be 5 in favor and none opposed. That public hearing is closed. May I ask the planning board director, do you have a recommendation for us?
I do. I would recommend that the board grant the special permit to authorize 33,514 square feet of light manufacturing use at 216 New Boston Street, and also vote to grant a site plan review of the 216 New Boston Street portion of the plan set that was submitted to you earlier this year. Further, I would recommend that the site plan review be granted subject to a series of 5 conditions. Number 1, that the developer obtain actual field survey data of the sewer inverts and calculate the actual hydraulic capacity of the existing 20-inch sewer. The information shall be submitted to the engineering department. Condition 2, the developer shall work with the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority to obtain an 8M permit to eliminate the 2 existing sewer crossovers and obtain local sewer connection status for the 20-inch sewer connections that would remain. Number 3.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Tina. There's if there's anyone in the audience that is not muted, thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry, Tina, go right ahead.
Perfectly fine. That number 3, the developer shall pay all costs and perform all work necessary to complete the items noted in 1 and 2 above. These costs shall be in addition to the infiltration inflow mitigation fee required by Section 18 of the Woburn zoning ordinance. Condition 4, the Conservation Commission and City Council have yet to conclude their respective reviews of the project plans. Revisions to the site development plans referenced on the first page of this decision that are mandated by either the Conservation Commission or the City Council as a consequence of their respective reviews and decisions may be made without the necessity of obtaining further planning board authorization of those changes. And then a 5th condition, slightly reworded from the draft I had originally proposed to the board. And the condition would read as follows. Design adjustments and modifications generally associated with 1, preparing so-called working drawings, or 2, site conditions shall be permitted, so long as such changes do not constitute substantial changes from the site development plans referenced on the first page of this decision, in the opinion of the building commissioner. In the event the building commissioner determines that the building plans filed with the building permit application are not in substantial conformance with the site development plans referenced on the first page of this decision, the petitioner may request a review of said plans by the planning board following the process outlined in section 11.12 of the Woburn zoning ordinance. That's it.
All right. Okay, so there is a planning board director recommendation. I would then ask the board if there's any further discussion or whether someone would be making a motion.
I have a question, Claudia, for Tina through the chair.
Sure.
Tina, I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, there has not been EPA approval or any environmental risk assessment. Is that correct?
I do not know whether or not an environmental assessment has yet been completed. But the Board of Health in their letter did point out that they felt that one was going to be required because of the nature of what they saw on a property when they were working on one that abutted it. So that is a standalone requirement, as I understand it. The Board of Health is a sign off on any building permit. So they will ensure that an environmental assessment, if one has not already been done and submitted, that one will be done and submitted before they sign off on a building permit.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to confirm that is not something that would need to be addressed in our recommendation.
I don't believe so. It's a standalone requirement that
Okay.
others can, including the building inspector, can also confirm and require.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Is there any other board member with any questions or comments? And if not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the director's recommendation.
All right, this is a motion to accept the planning board director's recommendation to issue the special permit with the conditions outlined by the planning board director. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by David. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I would ask for a roll call vote on the motion, please.
Bob Doherty. Abstain.
Abstain.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Abstaining.
Chair Claudia Bogan.
Aye. That is 5 in favor, none opposed. That motion carries. Good luck to the petitioners with the project, and thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda under subdivisions, Legacy Lane, request to accept as-built plan and release remaining surety posted to guarantee completion of subdivision. And that is Frank Mishenzi. Tina, what are we doing with this one tonight?
Well, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take any action. The construction completion date was up earlier this year. And as you just mentioned, there is acceptance of an as-built plan and then a release of remaining bond monies, or at least consideration of that. The developer has, in fact, submitted an acceptable as-built plan and has submitted along with that the required certification. The board could certainly vote to accept the as-built plans that were submitted. I do not, though, have a letter from Mr. Mishenzi requesting that the balance of surety be released. So although I do not have a formal communication from him, depends on whether the board wants to wait for that, to have that in hand formally before it votes. If so, we'll need to put it on the next agenda. If you feel comfortable voting to release the bond monies, knowing that the one remaining issue of the as-built plan and the design engineer has been resolved, you could take that vote tonight.
So Tina, let me make sure that I understand. An acceptable as-built plan has been submitted. That much we know.
Yes.
And we haven't gotten a request to release the money, which strikes me as unusual. Most people would want their money back pretty promptly. So that's the only part about that that's unusual. Is there anything further that the engineering department needs to review before we close this one down? And it's just really a matter of procedurally, the petitioner hasn't actually formally requested his money back?
It's procedurally. The engineering department is satisfied. They had done a number of site visits for us before, because you recall that earlier this year, you were considering whether to allow that roadway to remain a private way. And so in connection with that review, there was extensive, review by the engineering department as to completeness of the petition. And there were a few things like at that point earlier this year, there was also a need to put up a private way sign under the street sign so that plow guys will know not to go down that road and service it as part of the city contract. That sign's been erected. So short answer to your question is engineering is satisfied with the work on site and its adequacy. There was also a question, in case you recall, the DPW department at one point wanted to double check the work that had been done in Middle Street to make sure that all of the grades were matching and that there wasn't any puddling, or undue flooding that was occurring. And we waited a little while and they were able to observe it in a couple of significant rain events and reported back through specifically Lenny Burnham, the Assistant Public Works Director, that there were no issues out there, that work in Middle Street had been done appropriately and correctly. So literally, I don't know of any reason to hold the money other than procedurally, we have not been formally requested to release it by the applicant. We did exchange emails and phone calls with him last week, and he had assured me that he would get a letter in by the close of business yesterday. And for whatever reason, he did not deliver.
Do our rules or any sort of law require us to actually not release the surety unless we are requested?
Nope, I am not aware of anything that will preclude you from doing that. Interestingly, on a final bond release, excuse me. Sorry. If a developer or when a developer, if they were to formally request a release of a bond, the only thing that's interesting about that is that there is under the law a 45-day window for the planning board to consider the release request and either approve it or disapprove it for reasons you would give. But none of that obviously applies in this case because he hasn't filed it in writing. I do not know of any reason why you could not release that money tonight.
Right. So under those circumstances, what is the will of the board?
Madam Chair,
Mike, go right ahead.
I just want to be clear. So the only thing that what's negating the release of the surety is a letter from the applicant stating that, he wants his money and he's completed all his subdivision related obligations.
Yes, and that letter
And,
probably would have also pointed out, Mr. Ventresca, that they had submitted an as-built plan and the engineering certification, which had been found acceptable by engineering. So I think
Okay.
two things, approval of the as-built and our acceptance of the as-built and then release of the surety.
So, I mean, I wouldn't have a problem, if it gets submitted to the director, to the other departments, I wouldn't have a problem with that. I mean, I don't see why this needs to come back in front of us again.
All right, is that a motion to release the amount of surety that we are currently holding in the amount of, what is it, $68,239?
Yes,
Is that
If-
a motion, Mike?
Yes, that would be my motion.
Second.
All right, there is a motion.
For
on the
discussion,
table. Yeah,
I believe-
exactly. There's a motion on the
Yeah.
table by Mike, second by Bob. For discussion, Carolyn, do you have a comment?
I do. I think the document should be on file. I don't know if possibly instead of having him come back next time, if any such approval can be contingent on submission by a certain date to the planning board department. I know it's only a procedural matter, but I think it needs to be done in case something was to happen in the future, number one, and number two, you do it for one, you do it for all. And if you don't do for one and you don't do for all, what will be the consequences potentially in the future? So I don't know if I'm necessarily opposed to voting on it, but I think it certainly should be contingent on the document being filed within a certain time period.
So theoretically then, Mike could amend his motion to release the surety if as and when before December 13th, 2022, the developer formally requests it. something to that effect. And then if that condition isn't met, then that vote to release it would sort of expire by the fact that its precondition hadn't been met. Is that, Carolyn, kind of what you're thinking about?
Yes.
And,
I have no problem making that condition.
and would you
All right.
also,
All right, and Bob, do you have any problem in terms
I
of
do
seconding
not
the
have any problem
motion?
seconding that, no.
Okay, all right, so the motion on the table is Mike's amended motion, which would release the surety, but the precondition to the release is that on or before December 13th, 2022, the developer makes a formal request of the planning board, and upon that request, the motion will kick in and his money will be out the door. What do you think, Tina?
that sounds good to me.
All right, so that motion has been made and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Bob Darty,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
and Chair Claudia Bogan.
Aye, that is 7 in favor, none opposed. That motion carries. All right, on to the next agenda item, which is Baker Way subdivision expiration of construction completion date, and that is David Baker as petitioner. Tina, what is on our plate for today with
Okay,
respect to
so
Baker Way?
It is expiration of the construction completion date, which occurred at the end of October. You recall that earlier this year, the board approved a minor modification request to eliminate a portion of grass strip to address a field or a condition in the field where the abutter had removed a portion of the grass strip that Mr. Baker had installed. We learned at that meeting that the abutter had, in fact, since the request was filed, the abutter had taken out a further portion of grass strip. And when we left the July meeting, I believe the petitioner and his attorney, who is present this evening to address you and answer any questions, I had thought that what they might do is file a further request for a modification to cover the remaining grass strip that had since been removed. We had reached out to Mr. Baker and we had not heard from him, but Attorney Mark Salvati is here representing him this evening. And with your permission, Chair Bogan, I would ask that we ask him for a further update on the status of the subdivision.
Okay, Attorney Salvati, welcome, and what wisdom for us on Baker Way would you like to share today?
Good evening. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
I don't think I can get my video on because I'm in the car. But basically, Mr. Baker did file an as-built plan with engineering. So that has yet to be reviewed and finalized. We do have the other issue with the neighbor to clarify, and we have one issue with DPW wherein we thought we basically had a waiver from correcting the trench that was made and grinding and repaving because Washington Street should be repaved. So he has since, Jay Duran has since told us that that may not happen very quickly. So he's rethinking whether we need to do that work and whether we can get that done this winter. So that being said, those three things hanging out there, I would ask for an extension of the completion date to January 30th of 23 and would come back in immediately after that to see where we are, but hopefully we're done by then.
Okay, Attorney Salvati, thank you. Are there any board questions or comments for Attorney Salvati on this matter? All right, hearing none. Tina, do you have a recommendation?
I do, I guess. Well, I at least would say that I don't object to the suggestion that we continue or give an extension to the end of January. If it is decided that they want to do a modification request, then there is sufficient time for us to take in a request and advertise it for one of the board's January meetings. So I don't have any objection to the notion of extending the completion date to the end of January if the board is willing.
All right, and if we were to consider doing that, Mark, January 30th. I forget how many days there are in January and if that falls on a weekend or not. Do you have a suggestion, or anyone with the calendar can make a suggestion for a date certain at the end of January?
January 31st is a Tuesday. That would probably be the best day.
Okay. If board members have no further questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we continue to Tuesday, January 31st.
So is the motion to extend the completion date,
Extend the completion date till Tuesday, January 31st,
2023, and
2023.
is there a second? Second by Bob. Is there any further discussion on that motion? If not, I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan. Kevin,
Kevin,
Kevin's on mute. Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Claudia Bogan.
aye. That's 7 in favor, none opposed. That motion carries. Thank you, Attorney Salvati, for appearing today.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Next on the agenda under subdivisions is 24 Flag Street, expiration of construction completion date, and that is Mr. Gately. Welcome.
Hi there.
So what, Tina, are we doing on this today?
So up for discussion this evening is in fact expiration of the construction completion date. Mr. Gately had been granted an extension, I believe, last year that would gave him until the end of October to finish the subdivision. Some of the work has been done, particularly a lot of the off-site work. There was a carport that was impinging on another property that was impinging on the right-of-way. Mr. Gately was able to negotiate removal of that out of the right-of-way. And there was also a utility pole on the other side of the street that was narrowing the travel way, and that had long been moved back and out of the way. The site had also been cleared for construction, but construction of a house has not started. Remaining work that was hopefully going to be done by the end of October included installation of a street light, installation of a street tree, the curbing and bounds of the roadway, raising the structures, and then laying a top coat on the road itself, in addition to as-built and acceptance plans. Unfortunately, I have to report that none of that work has in fact been done in the intervening year since you last granted an extension. So I'm glad that Mr. Gately is here, and I have a couple of suggestions after he speaks that might be appropriate actions for the board to consider. But I'd like to hear from Mr. Gately.
All right, Mr. Gately, welcome. What can you tell us about this project today?
So I wrote in my, can you hear me?
Yep, just
Okay,
fine.
yes. So I wrote in my response here. Basically, I just didn't get to it. I was tied up doing other things. I just haven't got to it. And I wrote in there that nothing has changed up there. It is how it was the last time I talked to you, but I have intention on getting started there soon. I just been wrapped up doing other things.
Okay, so I guess I need to understand where this project sits, what the neighborhood situation is like, and Tina, if you could sort of elucidate a bit on that for us.
Well, when the site was first cleared, it was not long after the approval, and we heard a lot of feedback from one or two neighbors who were very unhappy with, certainly the project generally, but the nature of the clearing of the property was paramount. But that was literally now years ago. I have not heard or had any complaints from any of the abutters or any of the neighbors along Flag Street about the project not being completed. So I have no negative feedback that results from the inaction so far.
Okay, so At this point, I will ask the board if anyone has any questions or comments based on what you've heard so far. And if not, then I would ask Tina if she has a recommendation. Okay, I don't hear any board member comments. Tina, do you have some thoughts and recommendations on what we should do here?
So, I think there's two possibilities, and I know that Mr. Gately is busy elsewhere, but I also kind of suspect that that's going to remain the case for the next year or two. I know some of the work he's working on and some of the other projects that he has hopefully starting soon as well. So I've got a concern certainly that so many years has passed without completion of the project. So there's always the avenue that the board has to consider taking the bond if it wanted to and finish the work within the right of way, install the curbing and the granite bounds. It doesn't typically make sense to do any of that work until the house is completed, or at least the heavy construction vehicles that are needed for the house construction. But since we don't know when that will be, and it could be another year or two, that's concerning to me. It's also a draconian step. So one of the things I was wondering, and I would ask Mr. Gately for his reaction. My primary concern at this point is that quite a bit of time has passed since this bond was originally posted, and costs and expenses of lots of work and much of the materials has changed. I would like to consider suggesting to the board that if Mr. Gately was willing to have that bond reviewed and come up with a revised cost estimate, and he was willing to post, I don't know what the difference might be, but I'll pick a number out of the air. Right now, the bond that's posted is for $44,400. And if that bond amount was reviewed in terms of costs that we know of today, with a little bit of projection for the future, it might be, let's pick a number, maybe that 44.4 really ought to be 60,000. Would Mr. Gately be willing to post additional bond monies above the 44.4 that you currently hold to ensure that we at least have a bond that reflects current costs or the cost for the next year, in the event that eventually, if Mr. Gately does not do the work and the board wants to consider taking the bond money and completing the work, you will know that you have enough money to do that. George, do you have a thought on that or an objection, or?
So let me just ask this. So how we establish the bond is, it's actually from your numbers out of the engineering department.
Correct.
We use your, so have they changed their numbers?
Well, that's a very good question, Mr. Gately. I know that Greg Rayom, the assistant city engineer, does have access. He uses the figures that Mass DOT uses.
Yeah.
So, and he has access to the most up-to-date numbers. I don't have them, but he does have access to them, and those would be the ones that we would use.
Yeah. Well, I guess I could, I mean, if he's changed them, I should change it, and it should be updated, I guess would be the answer. I don't have any trouble updating it if he's changed the cost. I mean, I have all intentions of I've done a lot bigger subdivisions than this and haven't not finished them. I've finished a lot of big subdivisions, but if that's what you think would make you comfortable, I guess I could do that.
Well, I guess the issue too, George, in part is that it's been 5 years since the project was approved. And I know
Yeah.
you've done much bigger projects than this. You've probably completed them in the 5 years. So I know this is an anomaly for you, but it is one that persists. If you are amenable to that, what I might suggest then to the board is that we table discussion this evening and think about picking it up at the December meeting. I would work with Greg pretty quickly to get a revised number to George. And then George would then have sufficient time to go to his, it was a treasurer's check, so we'll have to amend that. But George would have enough time to do that between now and the December meeting if Greg and I can work on a revised figure within the next 7 days.
Yeah, and I'll do the same. I do want to mention that there's really only one or butter up there is Mr. Halsey there, and he's I'm probably pretty sure that both those abutters up there would be happy if I never did anything. They kind of like it the way it is, and they're using it nicely. So I don't think I don't think I'm hurting anybody, and I added a cul-de-sac and they had no way to turn around before, so I think even the condition it's in, it's a big improvement to that area, so, but if you want me to change the surety, I can change it, I guess.
All right, so that sounds like a potentially workable solution for a project that we approved 5 years ago with the bond 5 years ago, and us being comfortable to give another extension. So I'd like to open up to the board to either make comments, ask questions, or to make a motion.
So before you do that, can I ask one thing? Is this common practice? Have you guys adjusted all the bonds for everybody's that aren't done?
So let me just say that we as a board aren't super comfortable having a bunch of unfinished subdivisions outstanding with bonds from 2017. So that's not something that generally we like to see. And so in order for us to say, okay, we think that Mr. Gately will be getting to this and will finish it and will not leave it for the city to finish, it makes us feel more comfortable that the bond is at least up to date. I mean, not that we think that will happen, but you've asked a good question. If we do it for you, if we leave a 5-year-old bond in place and keep on giving extra time, then the next guy that comes in that, may have a different situation, but will argue to us, hey, look what you did for Mr. Gately. So that's kind of the flip side of what you're asking.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah. So is there any board member with any question, comment, or a motion?
Through the chair.
Yes, please. Jim, go ahead.
What's the extension timeline, and what is the holdup for not getting over there and doing the work?
Are you asking me, Jimmy?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, I said that the holdup, there is no holdup. The reason I haven't been there, I've been busy doing other things. I was upfront and honest. That's what I wrote. That's what I returned. I've been busy doing other things. I can make up a big fancy story, but I'm not. I told you I was busy doing other things, and that's the truth.
What is the timeline to complete it?
Well, I think I'll be in there this winter, at least start in one of the houses. So I don't know. I guess I'd like another year.
Okay. That's all I have, Tina. Thank you.
All right. Is there any other board member with any questions, comments, or a motion?
So the motion we're looking for, excuse me, Madam Chair, would be just to continue this matter till our next meeting in December. Is that correct?
Right, it'd be December.
And then we're gonna reset and take a look at, because I see that George did come up with a plan for next year to kind of wrap this thing up at the end of December. So my motion is to continue this matter till our meeting in December, which is
13th.
December 13th.
With the idea of having, if necessary, a new surety number that, if posted, would then result in the approval of the subdivision extension request that Mr. Gately has asked for. Is that your motion, Mike?
Yeah, that's correct. And I just wanted to make sure that Tina does address that, our engineering department needs to crunch their numbers. So, we have something to go by, and as well as the developer.
I will speak to Greg in the morning.
Okay.
Does that sound like enough time, Tina?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I don't
Okay.
think it'll take Greg more than a couple of days to come up with a revised number, and then I'll get that number to Mr. Gately, and that should leave him with still several weeks to be able to get the bond reposted.
All right. So Mike, that is the motion on the table. Is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, second by Bob. Is there any further discussion on that motion?
I have one question to Mr. Gately through the chair. I know last time when we were here in the fall, there was a question of whether it was going to be propane gas or a gas line by Eversource. How did that work out? Was it propane?
They are going to be propane, yes.
Okay. Okay, I just
All
wanted
right.
to follow up on that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right, and if there are no no further discussion or comments, I would ask for a roll call vote on the motion, please.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
Aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
and Chair Claudia Bogan.
Aye, that's 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Gately. We will see you next month and hopefully wrap this up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, so on the agenda after subdivisions is Planning Board Director update.
Sure,
Tina,
so.
what is our update?
Twofold. One is that the board's next meeting is scheduled for the 13th of December. And we will need to decide whether to hold it in person or virtually. On the agenda known at the moment, we have a discussion of the expired construction completion date for the Carlson Way subdivision. They have been working feverishly the last couple of weeks to try to finish the last remaining work. So with fingers crossed, they may be in December looking for a bond release, but if not, we will get an update on progress and consider an extension perhaps. Discussion of this 24 Flag Street completion date will be on the agenda. And I believe that is it for items known to us at this moment.
Okay, so that being the case, I'd like to hear from the board members as to whether they feel the December meeting should be an in-person meeting or a virtual meeting.
Through the chair,
Jim,
virtual.
all right. How am I seeing people react to that? I'm seeing generally, I see a thumbs up, Bob, thumbs down. All right. So if we schedule that as a virtual meeting, does that meet with most of the board's approval? Can I see sort of? Okay, I see some nods. All right, so at the moment, we're going to schedule that for a virtual meeting.
I'll do it from City Hall.
I'm sorry?
I'll do it from City Hall. I'll be there by myself, but I will do it from there.
All righty.
You'll be
I'll look-
sitting in the cold. I
I'll look forward to seeing that. All
didn't
right.
think of that.
Okay, so that is the first part of the planning board director update. We are going to schedule that meeting virtually for December 13th.
And then the other one was that we shared with you. Unfortunately, I guess we forgot to include it in the mailing last week, but earlier today, I believe Karen sent out a list of potential board meeting dates for next year. Generally follows what has been your schedule, the second and fourth Tuesdays, with some time off in the summer. We did double check to make sure that in February and April, all board meetings fall outside of school vacation week to the extent that's relevant to any of the board members. So I do not know whether you have had enough time to review the list. We're hopeful that it's acceptable to you, and if and when it is, we'll be able to provide it to the city clerk and reserve the meeting rooms.
All right. Has everybody had a chance to look at those meeting dates? And if so, are there any conflicts or concerns that members have that they have today? And so that's the first question. And number two, if they need more time, if any board member needs more time to thumbs up or thumbs down that schedule. All right, I'm hearing.
Hold on. I see one on Valentine's Day.
Is there really?
Is that a religious holiday?
For some, it might be. It might need to be.
You do. Yep, I see Valentine's Day.
I don't care. I'm just teasing. Doesn't matter to me. Might matter to my
Jane-
wife. but it
Jane
doesn't
might
matter to me.
care.
Yeah,
Yeah.
matrimonial harmony is a good thing.
Just say it.
All right. If generally speaking, these dates are acceptable, then I would ask Tina to go ahead and put them forward. And hopefully, if there's any major problems that come up after this meeting, we can deal with them at that time. But we can put a stake in the ground as to our meeting dates here, I think.
Good, thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, Tina, was that planning board director update?
That is it.
All right, so then we go to approval of minutes, October 25th, 2022 meeting. If members have had an opportunity to look at the draft minutes, I would entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the October 25th, 2022 minutes.
All right, a motion by Bob. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Carolyn. The motion on the table is to accept the minutes as submitted. Are there any further discussions or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, I would ask for a roll call vote on the motion, please.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Claudia Bogan.
Aye, that's 7 in favor, none opposed. That motion carries. Are there any other business matters that may legally come before the board not known at the time of posting?
Not from staff.
All right, there being none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn the November 15th planning board meeting at 7:50.
Okay, a motion to adjourn by Bob at 7:50. Is there a second?
Second,
Second by Dave. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I would ask for a roll call vote, please.
Bob Doherty,
Aye.
Jim Callahan,
Aye.
Kevin Donovan,
Aye.
Dave Edmonds,
Aye.
Carolyn Turner,
aye.
Mike Ventresca,
Aye.
Chair Claudia Bogan.
Aye, that is 7 in favor, none opposed. Thank you very much. Tina and Karen, thank you very much for a very well-prepared meeting, and we will see each other all again next month on this platform.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Thank
happy
you.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
Have a nice Thanksgiving, everyone.
Excellent.